In December of 2014, I turned 29. For the only time in my life, I'm exactly half the age of my father, which means that 29 years ago, he had me when he was 29. In the fall of 2010, I lived in Austin, Texas, and I worked at an Apple store where I met a man named Ron Kessler, who's a life coach. In exchange for me helping Ron set up his new computer, Ron offered me a free life coaching session. I don't remember a lot from that meeting that we had, but I did write down one thing in my journal from the time. The first 30 years are the age of formation. The next 30 years are the age of implementation. And the last 30 years are the age of reflection. Now, Ron never told me what happens if you live past 90, but why don't we call that the age of extreme caution and vicarious living? Anyway, the point is clear, like turning 30 is kind of a big deal. On one hand, it's like this arbitrary number, but on the other hand, it's an arbitrary number that our culture puts a lot of stock in. I mean, none of us really know how much time we have on Earth, but 30 feels like you should have something to show for it. This is where Ron Kessler's insistence that the first 30 years is the age of formation becomes really comforting, because it suggests that a lot of us through the late 20s and early 30s are still wrestling with questions like, what kind of person do I want to be, and what makes a life worth living? I think there's a lot we can learn by sitting with questions like these. I mean, I'm having these interactions with people all the time that suggest that we need not make the same tired mistakes in isolation, that there's a lot we can learn from each other if only we take the time to stop and reflect. This year, on the eve of my 30th birthday, I'd like to create 30 videos about life at 30 as a way of celebrating my 3 decades of living. I'll sit down with family, friends, and colleagues whose experience and perspectives I hope to learn from. So Joshua Tree National Park seemed as good a place as any in which to get this series kicked off. I mean, I've always had a soft spot for that 1987 U2 album, a fact for which I used to catch a lot of flack from my super cool and flawlessly indie friends in college. And not that that's ever really mattered to me that much, but I guess as I get closer to 30, I feel an increased license to kind of shamelessly love the lame things that speak to me. And maybe that's a big piece of what making this transition is all about. Finding peace with who you are while continuing to refine your vision for the kind of person you want to be. Thanks for watching. These trees are like something from a Dr. Seuss book. It's incredible.